Good morning and welcome to a Friday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. On today's program, we're going to have marvelous Marty Pallman joining us from the prepzone.com, talking a little high school sports, but also we're going to talk a little NFL draft in the second portion of the program, joined by Becky Burleigh, soccer coach here at the University of Florida. Let's go ahead and go straight to our Titan MRI hotline, and we're joined by Marty Pallman. Marty, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Shane. How you doing? Good to be with you.
Yeah, doing great. And as I mentioned, Marty's on the Titan MR hotline. Marty, I noticed, first of all, before we get into the NFL, we had Mike Wright out, who's part of the prepzone.com as well, on a couple of weeks ago. Give us where we are with the state of high school sports right now. Has anything changed in the last couple of weeks or months?
Well, you as you said, you talked to Mike recently, and I have a chance to work with Mike at the Prep Zone for many years now. And, this is, as we sit here April 17th, this would be about the middle of baseball season, and you would be looking at softball districts would be coming up, and you would have, in about 10 days, you'd have spring football practice starting up. But just like everything else, and there's nothing going on. I mean, there's no sports. Well, the schools are shut down. Schools have been shut down now over a month, public schools and schools in the state of Florida. So right now, that's where we are, and that's going to be going on in Florida until at least May 3rd. The Florida Department of Education decided March 13th to shut down schools, to cancel them for the foreseeable future due to the coronavirus, and that's still going to be going on until at least May 3rd. Now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis did say earlier this week that he is possibly interested in reopening schools in May if the curve in Florida continues to flatten, which right now it has started to do that as far as the curve of coronavirus cases. So there is a chance that schools could reopen in Florida in May. And the FHSAA, the Florida High School Athletic Association, has said that they do possibly have a plan to have spring sports. And in fact, they have an idea maybe as well to have championship events even going out to the end of June, maybe through June 30th. So Florida, the FHSA in the state of Florida, still possibly looking if they can get school back in May of having spring sports even through the end of June. And there is kind of a precedence for this because the Ohio High School Athletic Association announced last week they have their own restructured spring sports schedule. They're going to see if they can get the schools back in beginning May 9th. They'll have a spring sports schedule, a restructured schedule, and they could also have their season through June. So there is kind of a precedence for this. So Florida kind of leaving the door open for having spring sports. Right now, 22 states have already canceled school for the rest of the spring and into the summer. And 22 states have canceled spring sports as well. Utah was the latest to do it earlier this week. Alabama and Georgia in the South have already done that as well, neighboring states. So it's up in the air. You're probably going to know more in the next couple of weeks. Florida's in a holding pattern, but Florida hasn't canceled anything as of yet. Right now, they're just in a holding pattern, but still an opportunity maybe for Florida to still have a spring sports season. It all depends on, as like everything else, QB, what happens with the virus.
Yeah, speaking of that virus, Marty, the second NFL player has tested positive for the coronavirus. It was a center from the LA Rams, Brian Allen, I believe his name was the other day. Now, one of the stars of the NFL, Von Miller, has tested positive for the coronavirus. So he seems to be doing well, though, in his home there in Colorado. Marty, next week, next Thursday, the NFL draft comes around. I know you're a big NFL guy. You follow it very closely. It's going to be quite interesting. I've never been one who cares too much for watching the NFL draft, but I would think the ratings for this are going to be huge because there's no other sports to watch. There's not much going on. People are at home. But the way the draft is going to be structured this year is extremely interesting. What are your thoughts on it? Are you excited about how this is going to work out?
Yeah, well, I do enjoy the draft just because I think it gives you a chance. First of all, football season ends the beginning of February with the Super Bowl, and you don't have anything really until usually you have OTAs for in the beginning of May, and then you usually have spring football practice for college football in March. You're not even going to have that this year, so I think this year you definitely should be excited about the NFL draft because it's all you have. I mean, as you say, there's just nothing else going on. And this year is going to be especially interesting because it's going to be taking place in people's houses. I mean, I think if anything else, just to see how the whole setup's going to be. Roger Goodell is going to be making picks from his basement almost. It seems like so. In fact, I understand that there's a movement going on to have people are trying to give his address away, as fans are, so they can go boo him at his house. So there's everybody's home. I mean, nobody's really going anywhere, and there's nothing else to watch. So I expect ESPN and ABC are going to have some huge ratings for the draft. Other than this, the Chicago Bulls, this Michael Jordan documentary, which is coming on Sunday night, which I'm really actually looking forward to as well. First two parts of this 10-part documentary coming on Sunday. We just don't have a lot to watch. I mean, shame they had the horse the championship last night. So that's kind of where we are. So the NFL. Yeah.
I didn't tune in for the horse championship, unfortunately. But we're speaking with Marty Pallman on the Titan MR Hotline. You can follow Marty on Twitter at @MPallman. Second half of the program today, we're going to have Becky Burleigh, women's skater soccer coach. Marty, I know you're a Jaguar fan, and Leonard Fournette is pushing really hard for them to sign Cam Newton. Would you like to see Cam Newton as a Jaguar?
Well, that's interesting because obviously the Jaguars, they took a flyer on Nick Foles. They've been signing for a lot of money. Tom Coughlin did last year, a big contract that didn't work out. He gets hurt the first game as a Jaguar and then misses half the season, comes back, plays about 4 games, and then he's out, and they traded to the Chicago Bears. So basically their real option right now is Gardner Minshew. I don't know. At this point, I might take a flyer on Cam Newton. Another option would be to go ahead and draft a guy like you could draft Tua in this draft, or you could try drafting a guy like Justin Herbert. So it seems like Leonard Fournette is really pushing for Cam Newton. My problem with Cam Newton is it almost seems like he's damaged goods at this point. I mean, he just hasn't been the same since his Super Bowl season. And it just seems like the injuries have really affected him. I don't know what he has left. If you can get him, though, for a discounted rate, I might try him for a season. You don't give him a contract like Nick Foles had, obviously, but the Jaguars have gone a different direction. Tom Coughlin's not there anymore. So, I might try to give Cam Newton 1 year and see what happens there. But it's interesting because we'll see what the Jaguars decide to do on this, because I think they're in a position where they could draft a quarterback in the first round. They got a lot of holes to fill in this opening round, and there are some guys in that top 10, and they have 2 first-round picks that could possibly help them, because they need help around the defensive line, and they need help with the linebacker, but then the offensive line. A lot of positions the Jaguars need help in, because they're looking at a season where they're probably going to be among the lower 5 teams in the league again this year.
Yep. Jackie Spreads, who is currently on leave, is brought to you by Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. And Jackie Spreads will have a tremendous interview with his uncle Monday with Billy Donovan, who joins the program. Listen to this lineup we got next week, Marty. We got Billy Donovan, Wayne Fields, Larry Kennedy, Travis Taylor, John Brantley, and Matt McCall, who's the head basketball coach at UMass, who was on Billy Donovan's staff. So we're excited for next week's lineup. Switching over in the state, what are your thoughts about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Marty, I like this team now that they got Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think it's funny how, one guy kind of changes your thought about it. But I think the Bucs were kind of a team that were on the rise anyway. Tom Brady really seems to change your look at him. Even though he's 43 years old, he still has, I think, a lot left in him. If you give him receivers, and the Bucs have receivers, and they have offensive playmakers, You look at the odds makers have already switched the Bucks and the Patriots. I think Tampa Bay's got a real chance to make the playoffs this year, and they haven't been in the playoffs since 2007. So I agree with you. I think Tampa Bay's got a real chance, just with Tom Brady coming over to make the playoffs. Defensively, they've got some work to do, but with Bruce Arians coaching there, that's an offensive guy. He's going to coach Brady up like kind of like Belichick did, and I think they've got a real shot this year with the Bucks. I think it's just going to be strange to see Tom Brady in a Bucks uniform. The first part of that's going to be weird, and then once we get over that, I think you're going to see Brady's going to be just like Tom Brady always has been.
Everybody gets so excited when the draft comes around because all they want to talk about is the most important position at quarterbacks. And obviously, I think everyone thinks Joe Burrow will be the first pick to the Bengals. And then their argument, is Tua going to go to the Dolphins? Where's Tua going to go? But lately, it seems like a lot of people have question marks about Tua, and they're looking more at Justin Herbert. Do you think it's because of the durability and the injuries that Tua has had while he's been at Alabama?
Yeah, I think it is because, Tua's first couple of years at Alabama, he was the can't miss prospect. I mean, he was the number one pick. Everybody thought, all the NFL draft prospects thought, or teams thought that he would be the number one pick. And then last year he gets the injury and suddenly he's falling down the list. And then Joe Burrow makes that jump up as the Heisman winner last year. I think it definitely has to do with the durability of Tua. Miami was expected to be the Dolphins were expected to go 1-16 last year, and everybody thought they would tank for Tua. But now the Dolphins are still in a position that they could take him, and they still could do that. There's still an option there, although a lot of rumors say that they might move up to take Joe Burrow still at number one. I still think Tua's fine. It sounds like he's come through his rehab just fine, and he's going to be ready to go. But Justin Herbert, yeah, he's another guy. And I think a lot of question about Justin Herbert is you watch him play and he's got all the tools. He's got the size, the body. But there are times when you watch Oregon play and you wonder what he's some of the throws he makes, some of the decisions he makes. Other than that everyone really likes Justin Herbert. But, Tua, I still think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be okay as far as we can tell. I'm still interested to see if Miami will stick with him. I still think there's a chance he could fall down to Jacksonville, number 9. I still think that's an option. But yeah, I think Tua is going to be fine, and I think somebody in that top 10 is going to take a chance on him.
Well, this day in sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Is your whole family stuck at home and tracking in more than usual? Take your rugs to Area Rug Masters for a BOGO rug cleaning. When you mention the code Shane, call 352-448-5999. And speaking of first picks of the draft, in 1999, Marty, the NFL draft, University of Kentucky's quarterback Tim Couch was the first overall pick by the Cleveland Browns. So
that will.
That didn't turn out too great.
Yeah, a couple good years.
Yeah, so let's talk. We're talking draft, so we got a few more minutes here with Marty Pallman on the Titan MR hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, and Marty got a lot of Gators have opportunity to get their name called. We all know C.J. Henderson is. Some people have him as the number one corner in coming out. I said from day one when he got here, with his length and his ability to play the ball in the air, he's a guy that can play on Sundays for a long time. Do you think he will be the first corner taken off the board?
I do. I think it's going to be either him or Jeff Okudah of Ohio State. I think Okudah's pretty highly rated right now. I think it's going to be Okudah really, but Henderson has a shot. He's been moving up that board if you consider that. But Henderson, yeah, he seems to be looked at in the middle of the first round right now, or near that top 10 choices right now. I think you could see him in that middle of the first round because it seems like he would fit well with San Francisco or with Tampa or Denver, somewhere in that area. But it seems like CJ's been moving up that board for a while, and I think you're going to see that as well. But no, I think C.J. Henderson, he's going to be the Gator player you'll see in the first round. I mean, he could go a little bit later in the first round, but I think definitely the first corner taken. I'd like to see Jonathan Grenard move up into the first round. I think he's probably going to be more of a second rounder, but I think Grenard's the guy who's going to be pretty highly rated. And then I'm interested to see where all the receivers go. I think the top guy right now is probably going to be Van Jefferson, and he's going to be probably the second day guy, along with the Michael P. Ryan, probably going to get drafted on the second day. And I'd like to see Tyree or Freddie Swain taken, Tyree Cleveland as well. I think they're going to be a little bit later, but those guys, all those receivers, those senior receivers all had big years last year. And right now, definitely C.J. Henderson early, but I'd like to see Grenard go, hopefully move up a little bit more. I don't think he's going to be the first round, but I think second or third round is definitely true for Grenard, and maybe Van Jefferson in the second or third round.
Yeah, I think, Zaninga, who was injured most of last year, he's a guy that can rush the passer. He could be a sleeper. I don't know where what round he's projected, but I think a lot of people are concerned about the injuries, but man, he's a guy that could really last in the NFL for quite some time.
Yeah, I think the only question was Zuniga. I agree with you. Until last year, I think you would have seen him drafted higher, but that injury last year really cost him. But I think you're right. I think some team's going to take a chance on him, even probably as a second or third round pick. And you're right, he's going to last a while. He can really rush the passer. I think him and Grenard both are pretty similar in that way. So the only thing that will hurt Javari Zuniga is his senior season was injury plagued, but he was productive his first 3 years. So you're right. I think somebody will take a chance on him, and they should, because if he gets healthy again, he'll be fine. I think Michael P. Ryan proved in the Orange Bowl and in the Senior Bowl, and that he's ready to go. I think somebody's going to take a chance on him as well. That's probably going to be the late second day or third day, like 4th, 5th round picks. So those guys all, I think, have a chance to go somewhere. P. Ryan was a little disappointing last year until the Orange Bowl, but I think he proved in the bowl game that he can play at the next level, and he can play in big games too.
Celebrate Primary Care, a direct primary care medical practice serving businesses and individuals with offices in Gainesville and Alachua. Ultimately, that means you and your employees get excellent medical care when you need it without having to jump through the hoops of a traditional medical practice. Over 2,000 members love it, and we think you will too. Marty, last thing for you. Obviously, in our area here, college football is what everyone loves. Right now we have no idea when that's going to start. If you were to say today, which is April 17th, I think, Marty, will the season start on time? And if not, when do you think it will start?
Well, that's that's probably the toughest question you ever had to ask, Shane, because this is really, we say unprecedented a lot about what's going on, but it really is unprecedented. You can't predict this at all. I mean, this is like nothing we've ever seen. This isn't a hurricane. This isn't, anything that we've had, because you don't know when it's going to get better. You don't know when it's going to, when it's going to stop, when it's going to improve. I mean, it's April 17th. We're in the middle of April. Football season, college football doesn't start until September. So, I mean, the signs seem to be improving. We seem to be, getting better as far as the state of Florida, and as they say, flattening the curve and in the nation. So I think that the way things have been going, I think we're heading that way. But if you had to ask me, you asked me, I think we're going to have college football, but I don't think we're going to have fans this year. I really think we're going to have college football without crowds, and I think that's going to be the case at least this year. I have a hard time seeing 85,000 people in the Swamp this year or anywhere, just based on what's been going on. I think it's going to take a little while just to be able to get fans in stadiums and arenas. So I think we're going to have it. I don't know if we're going to be able to have fans. I definitely think we have time to get the games on the field. So that's the way I feel about it right now. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope we have fans. I want to have fans in the stadium. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about it right now. But then again, like you said, it's April 17th. We have 4.5 more months until the season starts. So there's a long way to go still. This kind of changes, it seems like, week by week, day by day.
Well, let me ask you this. So if they did, whenever they do start, would Marty Pallman, as a fan and as a media member, would you go sit in a press box or sit in the stands and watch a game?
Today I would probably not sit in the stands, no. As a media member, yeah. I mean, media, yeah. I mean, I would cover a game if you have it, in the correct. If there's the social distancing, yeah, that kind of thing. I don't know if I would sit. I probably wouldn't sit in Florida Field. No, Florida Field's pretty crowded, so I don't know if I would right now. No, just knowing what we know. So, I think we've got to learn a little bit more before we can do that, and especially a football game. A football game is going to be tough. I think it's just a lot of people. It's an 90,000 people. So I don't know. That's kind of where I think we are right now. But we just don't know enough about it too. Until there's a vaccine, that's kind of where we are with this virus. And I don't. But I think it works the same thing for basketball. Anywhere you are, anywhere close to people, you just don't know at this point.
Very true. Well, Marty, we appreciate you joining us this morning on the program. Be safe out there, buddy, and we'll talk to you on down the road.
Thanks, Shane. It's good talking to you.
All right, that's Marty Pallman from the Prep Zone. Join us. You can follow him on Twitter at @Pallman. We're going to take our first time out of the program. When we come back, we hope to be joined by women's soccer coach here at the University of Florida, Becky Burleigh. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown!
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We're going to be now joined by Becky Burleigh, women's soccer coach here at the University of Florida. Long time, probably the longest tenure of any coach here. Becky, how are you? Welcome to the program.
Oh, I gotta correct you on that one. It's Mary Wise.
Oh, I forgot. Mary, you're right. You're exactly right. Well, Becky, we really do appreciate you taking your time. First of all, what's going on with Becky Burleigh during this time being stuck at home?
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's harder to be a coach of a team that's not with you than it is when they're there. So it's just a lot of coordination, trying to keep things running from afar, and that makes it pretty interesting.
Becky, you play college soccer, and then I read where, gosh, you were offered a job right out of college at Berry University. Around 21 years old? How was that coaching so young, coaching kids that were almost the same age as you?
It was very interesting, to say the least. I think that's one of the things I learned through that process, which I didn't even know at the time that I was learning it, was that it was really important to coach through influence as opposed to power. because I was their same age. Actually, I had 4 kids on the team that were older than me.
Oh, wow.
So it was really interesting.
We're speaking with Becky Burleigh on the Titan MR hotline. Becky, then the University of Florida comes calling. A major university getting ready to start a program. How excited were you? The nervousness of starting a new program at a school like the University of Florida?
Well, let me tell you, the story of that is I had interviewed at a couple other places before Florida. And when I came to Florida, it was a really long interview. It was like a day and a half. And the first morning I got there, and they gave us like a little lunch break. And I called one of my best friends at lunch. So I had been here like a total of 3 hours, I think. And I said, I don't really need to see anymore. If they offer me this job, I'm taking it. Because I knew immediately how amazing UF was right when I stepped on campus. It was an exciting time. There were a lot of soccer programs starting at that point. And I just feel really fortunate that I ended up landing at a really great spot right from the start.
Well, you've had a tremendous run here in your 25 years, and you've coached some tremendous players. You've had girls that have played in the Olympics, been part of the World Cup. Talk a little bit about how that feels, because I know as a high school coach, there's no better feeling than when your kids are playing on Saturdays. And these girls that came here, played for the Gators, you coached them, and now they're playing for the United States of America. How did that feel for you?
It is pretty amazing to watch players go on and continue their career, for sure. And I think that that's one of the rewarding parts about what we do. And I think what's also rewarding is just seeing people go on and do big things in their lives in general, whether that's being a mom, whether that's, we just had a player who went from Florida to New York as a nurse to work on the front lines with the whole COVID situation. And when you see those things, it just reminds you of like where they came from, and it's just so fun to watch.
So talk about some of some of our listeners probably aren't real familiar with soccer, but if you throw some of the names of some of your girls that played in the World Cup and on the Olympic team, they'll probably be familiar with them. Talk a little bit about those girls.
Well, some of the more common names I think people might remember, Danielle Fotopoulos is still today the NCAA's leading goal scorer in history, which is pretty crazy to think that 20 years later. And then Abby Wambach is a name that I think most even non-soccer people know. Abby, until just a month ago, was the international leading goal scorer, man or woman. Heather Mitz had a terrific career with the national team. And she's doing great things now, talking about empowering women. So is Abby. Both of them are really big platforms in that space. So it's fun. It's fun to see what they've done.
We're speaking with Becky Burleigh on the Titan MR hotline. She's the third winningest coach in women's soccer in the country. Becky, your 1998 team obviously has got to be a special one to you. You win the national championship in your fourth year here. Talk a little bit about that year and what that team means to you.
Well, that team will always be special for sure in Gator history. I think one, because it was the first graduating class, and then obviously because they won the national championship. But it was just a great mix of players. You had like the superstars like Danielle Fotopoulos and Abby Wambach were on that team together. Danielle as a senior, Abby as a freshman. But there were a lot of unsung heroes on that team too. We don't win a national championship without Meredith Flaherty in goal. Erin Baxter was one of the toughest players I've ever coached. We actually have an award named after her at our banquet every year. And there was just a lot of people. Keisha Bell, who ended up marrying Ronnie Sowell, who was a baseball player in Florida. She was a huge part of that team. I mean, just a ton of really great personalities.
We got a couple of Facebook Live comments and questions here brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. Todd says, Becky is one of the only coaches at Florida to take a sport from ground zero to a national champion. When Becky was hired, she had no assistant coaches, players, equipment, or even a field to play on. Ask her about that journey.
Well, it's a funny story because the very first year we shared the practice field with football. And that was, when the practice field, there was no indoor practice field. So it was just those 2.5 practice fields that were up there. And we usually trained first, and then football came on after us. And I can remember one time when I think Coach Spurrier was struggling a little bit with the kicking game. And so our goalkeepers were the last ones to leave. And he asked them to come over, and he said, "Hey, girls, just punt this ball for me." So both the goalkeepers punted the ball, and he turns to his punters. He goes, "Well, about as good as what we got right here." And so I think it was always an interesting dynamic to be able to be that interactive with the football team in those early days.
Another Facebook question here brought to you by Pound Hurt. Brian says, Becky's a great coach and even a better person. Please ask Becky where she graduated from high school.
Oh, geez. I graduated from Tarpon Springs, and we're known because our high school mascot is the Spongers.
I remember that.
Might be the worst mascot ever.
Yeah, I remember my son had to play a playoff game against them in football, and I was like, what is this mascot, the Spongers?
Hey, it's unique. Everybody knows us.
No doubt about it. Well, Becky, one of your current players, I saw on Twitter that one of your current players' father has been struggling with the coronavirus. How is he doing?
Well, he's fighting really hard. It's been a real roller coaster because he was first, had some mild symptoms, was at home, got progressively worse, ended up having a heart attack, went into the ICU, has been there ever since. But a couple of days ago, he got off the ventilator, but they've had to put him back on for a short period of time, which hopefully that ends today. But he's definitely fighting and taking steps forward, and he's got just tons and tons of people praying for him and his family.
We got a text here on the Titan MR text line. It comes from Jonathan. He says, I love the show. Here's a question for Becky. She's been at UF for 25 years. Obviously, retirement is on the horizon. Do they have a coach in waiting or someone to step in when that time comes?
Well, I don't know about that. Those decisions are made above my pay grade, I think. But, certainly I think this would be a very attractive job to anyone. So I would imagine that Florida would have their pick of who they wanted.
Well, Becky Burleigh here on the Titan MR hotline, women's soccer coach. Becky, not only are you the women's soccer coach here, but I know you have a coaching development organization called What Drives Winning, along with a guy named Brett Ledbetter. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I'm just now learning about it, and it's very intriguing to me. Let our listeners know what that's all about.
Well, What Drives Winning started when I met Brett Ledbetter, actually through a Billy Donovan contact. Mark Daignault was on Billy's staff, and he introduced me to Brett because Brett's a basketball background person himself. And I brought Brett to UF to work with my team. The other coaches really enjoyed it. And so we started doing this monthly head coaches collaboration that we've continued till this day. And it's been such an eye-opener because what Brett does is he brings us sort of like case studies on all these amazing coaches and thought leaders. And then we just sort of interact with those things. It's not so much he's telling us something, he's just asking us really interesting questions. And we sort of have three pillars in our organization. One is character development. The second one is priority alignment, which in the coaching field is a really challenging thing. And then the third is behavior management, which is part of what every coach has to deal with. So we sort of hit those topics in a variety of hopefully interesting and fresh ways and digestible ways for coaches. And it's been a really fun journey so far.
So who are some of the well-known coaches that have been involved with y'all?
Well, we've had a lot. In the basketball world, we had Brad Stevens when we did a conference in Boston. Bill Belichick contributed to that one as well. And then we've had some people like Gino Auriemma from UConn, Sherry Cole from Oklahoma, Mike Gundy from football. We've even had Urban Meyer. We've had a lot of different people who have sat down with us to do some interviews, and we've used that to put on Twitter. It's free content on Twitter. You can see a ton of videos and a ton of different resources from a lot of different coaches. And I think for me, what's been interesting is it's just really gotten me out of the soccer world. Like I've learned so much from coaches from different sports. And I think that's something that I would advise all coaches to think about is get out of your sport. And we're all doing the same thing. It's just a different vehicle, maybe with the sport we're coaching, but it's pretty interesting how much overlap there is.
So have you worked, y'all's program, have you worked with a lot of the sports here at the University of Florida?
Yes, we do that collaboration every single month, and then Brett does some individual work with teams outside of that. Tim Walton has done a lot of stuff with us. Mouse from the track team, Roland Thornquist from women's tennis. It's been so fun. And I think what's really created a situation in Florida is that even in between our monthly collaborations, we're a much, much tighter coaching unit. Like, we really rely on one another for advice and for ideas and collaboration. And I don't think that happens everywhere. I think UF is pretty special.
Well, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, you see all the championships we win in multiple sports. So I'm curious, as a former athlete myself here, what are some of the exercises that you do with some of the players? And is it much easier for, like, softball, soccer, track? The numbers in basketball, the numbers of the players on the team are such smaller. And then you look at a football team that has like 120 players. Talk a little bit about some of the exercises that are done in y'all's program.
Well, one of the things that we did last year with coaches was we asked them, what are the top 3 things that can keep your team from maximizing its ability? And you can ask that same question to players, and then you sort of populate the things that they say. And it's the same things on every team, whether it's a football team or whether it's a gymnastics team or a tennis team. And the things that come up are, selfishness, lack of focus, commitment, work ethic. And so once your team kind of gives you those answers, like, these are the things that could keep us from maximizing our ability, now they have told you what the built-in curriculum is that you need to teach in order to get them past those hurdles. So it's a great way to, like, crowdsource the information from the source. So, like, why guess at it when they will tell you what it is? And then you can sort of create some programming around that. And if you think about it, like, as a coach, we get so caught up in our X's and O's, but our team isn't saying what's going to hold us back or what's going to not allow us to maximize our ability is that, we're not going to tackle very well, or we're not going to score enough goals. They're telling us these human-related issues, but how much as coaches do we address these human-related issues? And I think that was kind of a big aha moment for me as a coach, was I need to be coaching human-related issues more.
Gotcha. We're speaking with Becky Burleigh on the Titan MR hotline. You can follow her on Twitter at Becky Burleigh. Becky, something just came to my mind here. Women's soccer, how difficult, or compared to the other sports, let's just say football and baseball, how difficult it is when you go out and you recruit your girls to come to the University of Florida? Is the recruiting process different in soccer than it is in those sports?
I'd say there's a lot of similarities in terms of, club sports is where it's at in terms of our recruiting. We go to high school matches, but usually there's a much more of a concentration of higher level players in the club sports space. But, it's been interesting because we've had such this war of different organizations in the youth sports space that's competing for players. And how you're recruiting at the University of Florida, you're recruiting the elite of the elite. And so is everybody else, because they are the elite of the elite. So you have to make sure that you find something that sort of separates your program from everyone else's. And I think that's no different than any sport at Florida.
Speaking of the sports at Florida, we just got a text from Mike on the Titan MR text line. He wanted to know, are there any concerns from not only the University of Florida Athletic Department of cutting spring type sports or sports like soccer? Any concerns there?
I mean, we have not heard anything like that. I mean, I think that UF would certainly do their best in all of this to try and keep every sport that they can and to keep the level of athlete support where it is. I mean, obviously it's really unprecedented times at this point, but I think that UF is really committed to the program, the sports programs that we have here, and keeping that at the highest level.
Yeah. We got a question here from Joe. He wants to know, Becky, you've been here 25 years. You've seen several football coaches. How do you think Dan Mullen has done in his first 2 years here prior to some of the other coaches?
Wow, what a loaded question that is.
No doubt.
The one thing I really admired about Dan is his ability to mobilize the fan base. I think he's done a terrific job of engaging people, whether it's the alumni, whether it's the fans. And certainly, the Swamp has returned in terms of its energy and level of engagement and things like that. And I'm sure that's a very difficult job and time-consuming job. And we think about as coaches, you're thinking about, well, coaching football, I'm, giving X's and O's to these guys. And there's so much more. I mean, the modern football coach is a CEO of a very large organization, and he wears a lot of hats. And I think I'd have to give Dan a lot of credit for the different hats that he's worn and his success in all those areas.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Becky, back to your What Drives Winning program. We have a lot of people they're in the sports arena that listen to our show, but also a lot of businesses. This is not just for coaches and athletes. This is for business owners as well, right?
Yeah, no doubt. We've had a lot of people that have crossed over. We've done some corporate stuff, and interestingly, we've really gotten into the educational space. So we've had some, entire school districts, like superintendents and school boards, be very interested in the way that we teach. I think what attracts people to what we're doing is the sports metaphor is such a powerful one, because everyone has had a sports experience, either as a player when they were young, as a fan as they got older. And so it's so relatable. And then when you see, these best in practices, people sharing what they do, and you can directly apply that to your organization. It doesn't matter if you're a sports organization, a business, a family. They're really timeless principles.
This may be a silly question back to soccer, but I think I want to say Mouse Holloway had an opportunity and was going to be a part of the Olympic coaching staff or what have you. Have you ever had an opportunity to be a part of the Olympics or any of the World Cup or anything like that with all the success that you've had?
That's a good question, because our Olympic and World Cup is all the same. So it's U.S. Soccer. It's one organization. Is our national governing board. But to be fair, like, that has never interested me whatsoever. It's such a different environment than college coaching. I mean, it's very much like a pro environment. It's pretty transactional. There's a lot of in and out of players, and you don't get to see each other very often because you're only in camps on certain times of the year. And so for me, like, that lack of continuity in coaching a team that's not something that appeals to me. I think that it's really exciting when I see, like, Greg Troy coaching the swim and then Mouse doing the track. I think it's really exciting and fun to have Gator coaches as part of that, but that's just something I would have never wanted to do.
We got a Facebook Live question/comment brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. Becky, Wayne wants to know, he says, male athletes play multiple sports in college, such as football and track. Some do football or basketball and track. What are your feelings about females playing multiple sports in college?
Well, we've actually had several multi-sport athletes, and I'm for it. I mean, I'm especially for it as a youth player coming up. And you can tell the difference between players who have played multiple sports. They're just, cleaner, smoother athletes, because it's not like they've just trained their whole life at soccer. And so those movement patterns are fine. But then, ask them to catch a ball and they look like they don't know what they're doing. But when a player has played multiple sports, I feel like it's so much healthier to not have the overuse injuries that strictly soccer players have. And we've encouraged it very much so in the athletes that we recruit. And like I said, we've even had a few that have done that here at this level. At playing two sports at a UF level is super hard. But we haven't had that many, but when we've had the opportunity to have some, we've done it.
So they played soccer in the fall, and then would they run track in the spring here?
We had Taylor Burke, probably the most notable one. She was our starting goalkeeper as a freshman and won the SEC high jump the same year. And we had Gabby Seiler, who played basketball. We had Pam Beggett, who played basketball. She was more of a practice player for basketball. And then Ashley Harris played softball. She was just a base stealer back in the very early Tim Walton days. So we've just had a few different ones.
Very cool. I wasn't even aware of that. We have another question here on the Titan MR text line. It says, Scott Strickland's been here about 3 years now. How is his leadership compared to Jeremy Foley?
Man, you're just like throwing the fastballs here.
Well, they're both tremendous athletic directors. We're not trying to.
Oh, no doubt.
They're awesome.
No doubt. Yeah. Jeremy was the one who hired me, and I think I might have been, if not his first hire, one of his first hires. And obviously have a ton of respect for him and what he created at the University of Florida. And then I think, I think Jeremy had a large part in Scott as his successor, and I can see why, because I think Scott has done a great job of coming in, especially at the beginning, and really listening to the coaches and the staff and trying to gather as much information as possible before he, entered into what he was going to bring to this organization. And clearly, the leadership changeover has been pretty seamless. Scott's done a great job of maintaining the level and improving things like facilities. Clearly, that's been a big point of his. But I think if you asked any Gator coach, they would all be pretty happy with the transition.
Absolutely. Becky, last couple things for you here, and we really do appreciate you joining the show. So right now, your girls are scattered all over the country. I'm sure you're in contact with them. My son's on the football team, so they're busy doing Zoom meetings, this, that, and the other. What are you doing with your girls on the soccer team at this point?
Well, you'll be interested to hear that we actually had a Zoom meeting with football this week. So,
oh, wow.
Vernell Brown, who does the player development for the UF team, was kind enough to invite our team into their last financial management meeting that we had on Wednesday. And we'll be doing that every Wednesday with them. It's the Gator Life program for football. We call it Real World Weekly on our team, where we take topics that have nothing to do with our sport, but are hopefully things that can help players later in life. So we're doing that. On Mondays, we divide the team up and we either meet with them individually. Each coach meets with people individually, or we do a small group meeting. And then on Fridays, our older players have small groups that they interact with by themselves without coaches. And then, of course, randomly we're in touch with people in between too. But it's a really interesting time because normally this time of year, we're sort of ramping down. This would have been our last weekend of competition. And then they are sort of on their own. They go with their teams for the summer, and we don't see them again until the beginning of summer B usually. But at this time, it's very different. So we've provided them workouts and a daily schedule because I think that's what they miss the most. It's kind of funny. I think athletes feel a little bit overscheduled, but now in the time when they have no schedule, they're really craving a schedule.
No doubt about that. Last thing for you, Becky, let everybody give us a preview of your team coming back for next year.
Well, we're hoping that we're going to have a fall season, first of all.
Right,
so
right.
Everybody send good vibes. But I think it's going to be an exciting year. We have one of our premier players, Deanne Rose, will be a senior this year. She's already a bronze medalist for Canada in the Olympics. And, the Olympics clearly were supposed to be this summer and over with before our season. But now that that's been pushed back, she'll still be in training mode for the Olympics for Canada. We've got a lot of great returning players, but a very exciting young group coming in as well. So I think it's going to be an interesting mix of veterans and youth. But I feel like this group of seniors is really prepared to lead. And to be fair, I think this situation has helped them develop more leadership skills because they've had to take more of a lead given the current circumstances. So in some ways, I feel like we're even more prepared leadership than we would have been had this not happened.
That's good stuff. Last thing, Becky, let them everyone know where they can, if they want to order videos, books, or what have you for What Drives Winning, where they can find that information.
Well, if you want just free content, then just go to at WDW Convo, like What Drives Winning Conversation. At WDW Convo is just a ton of free stuff. But then if you go to our website, which is whatdriveswinning.com, there's also every video that we've ever produced there for free. And there's some links to buying some books and things like that.
Becky, we appreciate you joining the show. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. And go Gators.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Go Gators.
All right, that's Becky Burleigh, long-time, very successful coach here at the University of Florida. We're going to take our second time out of the program. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Palmetto Moon, Skechers, Starbucks, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, Select Shades, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate. We really want to thank Marty Pallman from the PrepZone.com to joining us on the show, and I can't thank Becky Burleigh enough. So much success here at the University of Florida, and her joining us today and promoting her What Drives Winning. I think that stuff is awesome. I wish they would have had that when I was playing. Tomorrow's program, we don't have a show tomorrow. Today is Friday. But next week, again, remember, you can watch us on Facebook Live, YouTube. Check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But next week, we have Billy Donovan, Wayne Fields, Larry Kennedy, Travis Taylor, John Brantley, and UMass coach Matt McCall will all join the program next week. I'm excited. We have also some media guests joining us as well with those guys. But make sure you tune in and, go to our Facebook page, like us, follow us. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. And you can listen to us anytime there. But be safe out there, folks. Again, we'll talk more draft next week. It starts Thursday. We'll see what Gators win and where they are drafted. But that's going to be pretty much it for this edition this week. You've been watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Be safe out there. We'll see you next week. Take care.